Hi, Cal. Thanks very much for providing us with this interview today. If you could start off and please provide us with an overview of your career history.
Well, my career has spanned almost 30 years now. Out of college, I went to work for KPMG Pete Marwick, worked there 6 years. I left there to work for the Northland Company. I worked at the holding company level, and Northland owned real estate, property casualty insurance, and mortgage banking operations. It was owned by Ted Ham from the Ham Brewery family, and I worked there 10 years till Ted sold the company. 3 of us from the treasury function at Northland formed our own company called Private Capital Management. And Private Capital Management is a registered investment advisory firm. We also do private equity transactions. Some of the private equity transactions we've done is purchase a food servicing company, a printing company, a newspaper company, even a snow plowing company. We started our 13th year of business this year.
Great, thank you. If you could kind of focus in now with your career with KPMG Pete Marwick and, describe to us your advancement within the firm, some of the engagements that you were assigned to.
Well, I know you're interested in independence a little, so let me take you back even a little farther. Out of college, I did interview with all 8 of the big 8 firms at that time. And Arthur Anderson was the audit partner for the Minnesota Twins. And as you know, our family used to own the Minnesota Twins. And Arthur Anderson offered me a job, but would not allow me to work in the Minneapolis office. They offered me a job in the Dallas office. I thought it was a little strange that they wouldn't allow me to work in the Minneapolis office and just not be in the Minnesota Twins audit. But for independence reasons, they wouldn't even allow me to work in the Minneapolis office. I then accepted a position with KPMG, and I ended up working there 6 years. 3 years in the audit department, 3 years in the tax department. Like most new CPAs, I started off as an assistant, staff, senior. About 18 months into my career, quite a few seniors quit at KPMG, and they promoted like 10 of us to seniors 18 months into our career. I left the audit department as a supervising senior, and one of the reasons I left audit to go to tax was every time I asked tax questions to controllers, they had no idea. They said, "You guys handle that." And I thought if I ever left public accounting, it would be a really good idea to have some tax background because I just didn't see many controllers that had background in tax. So I ended up spending 3 years in the tax department and left when I was a manager.
Great, thank you. It sounds like you had a lot of really great experiences at KPMG. So, what ultimately made you decide to leave public accounting to pursue a job in the private sector? And specifically, what in particular was it about the Northland Company that attracted you to work there?
Well, I didn't really seek a job. The Northland Company actually pursued me, and it was kind of a short turnaround. They were looking to fill a position pretty quickly. They made this offer to me. I liked the fact that they had diverse industries, real estate, mortgage banking, insurance. They were offering me a job as assistant treasurer, and I liked the idea that I could do tax work, financial statement work, investment work, all aspects of a treasury function. So I liked the diversification of the job, and I accepted the position.
All right. I kind of shared some details with you about the case that our class is discussing today with Mail and Resources, which is a lot about the transition process between leaving public accounting and going into the private sector. So if you could describe the transition process from KPMG to your job with the Northland Company and how you kind of perceived that.
Well, like I said, it was kind of a short turnaround. They offered me a job and gave me about 10 days to respond. I ended up accepting the job. I went into the managing partner and told them that I accepted this position. There were really no independence concerns. I was in the tax department as opposed to the audit department at that time, but like you see today, there wasn't really the independence concerns. In fact, I think most of the people that left KPMG actually went to work for a client. I did get called in a few days after accepting the job, and Pete Marwick tried to talk me out of accepting the position or rescinding it, but I ended up continuing to accept the job and went to work for the Northland Company.
And how many years exactly were you assigned to the Northland Company engagement while employed with KPMG?
All 6 years. In the audit side, I worked on the real estate operations from assistant to senior. And then when I went to the tax department, I actually coordinated all aspects of the tax return, which was for the property casualty insurance operations, mortgage banking operations, and the real estate operations.
Okay. So what you're saying is you were on the engagement while you were considering the job?
Yes.
But in the tax area,
In the
correct?
tax, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right. So were you aware of any independence implications while going through the transition and when you began your new job at the Northland Company?
And nothing occurred to me. Like I said, I saw 30 or 40 people, or maybe even more, during my career there leave to go to work for clients, and it's very customary.
And did you ever personally feel it was a concern for you, or just because it was so customary, it just didn't really ever cross your mind too much?
No, I really didn't. Being in the tax area, I didn't really think of independence like you might think of in the audit area. We're just doing compliance work, so it really didn't occur to me that there would be any independence problems.
Okay. Aside from public accounting then, have you ever had any independence concerns anywhere else in your career, at the Northland Company or at private capital management?
Yes, when we started at private capital management, we sent up a bunch of brokerage accounts on behalf of our clients, some custodial accounts at banks. And I received gifts from certain brokers and from banks. And I actually returned all these gifts because I felt I didn't want them to or anybody to think that I was setting up these accounts to receive gifts. I wanted to maintain that independence. So after I returned the gifts, I never got gifts again from these firms. So,
all right, and you are regulated by the SEC, correct? Your
Yes,
firm. So
yes,
could
we
that be a potential for punishment with them if they ever uncovered that, or would it just maybe look suspicious in terms of independence and the appearance of that?
I think today more than maybe 13 years ago, yes, with all the things that are happening with the SEC, but back then, I think with a minor gift, I don't think that I was more concerned from the client standpoint than the SEC, that I didn't want any clients thinking that I was setting up their account with this broker because they were doing me favors or giving me gifts. I told the brokers, I just want you to service our clients well. And I just thought if I removed that gift from the situation, that removed any independence problems.
Okay, thank you. Just to kind of wrap it up, it's very likely that most people who enter the public accounting field will eventually leave to pursue a job in the private sector. So if you could provide any insights or suggestions you may have to those of us who are preparing to enter the first phases of our careers within the next several months.
Well, I think you've made an excellent choice to start with. I think the experience you gain is just invaluable. In fact, there's 4 of us at our firm that are ex-KPMG, Pete Marwick people. And we were talking several months ago about how hard they worked us, how little they paid us, how much we complained, and how it was the best thing that ever happened to us. The experiences and the skill sets we got when we worked at Pete Marwick were just invaluable. There's 3 actually skills that I see CPAs have that a lot of accountants that don't come from a public practice really have. One, just being analytical skills, the ability to sit here and compare and contrast different accounts and relationships seems to be missing from accountants that go right into industry as opposed to public practice. Also, materiality. I'll share a little story from early in my career. In fact, my first audit, I got really excited. I found a $2,000 error. And I went right to the client and I said, look at this, you did this wrong. And I was so proud of myself for finding this error. And I went to my senior and I told him what I did and what I found, and he goes, you told the client they did something wrong? You never say that. You tell them you found a difference, not an error. And then he said, how long did you spend figuring this out? I go, it took me a couple hours to figure this out. Well, I just want you to know we don't care about any difference that's under $50,000. If the difference is under $50,000, just note it on the work paper and say minor. So I learned materiality at a very, very young age in my career.